Coming up on episode 311 of Wheel Bearings, we've got a couple of similarly sized but very different electric mid-size crossovers. We've got the Miata again. We've got the BMW M5 Touring plug-in hybrid, the Cadillac Escalade IQ, ChargePoint investing in reliability, bidirectional charging for GM, a Tesla that alerted its driver 150 times to put his hands on the wheel before a fatal crash, a first look at the 2024 Hyundai Santa Fe, and the average transaction prices of EVs are falling, kind of. All that and more coming up next. This is episode 311 of Wheel Bearings. I'm Sam Abul-Samad from Guidehouse Insights.
And I am Nicole Wakeland from the Road Reflected podcast.
And I am Roberto Baldwin from Hot Cars.
And who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Me. I'll go first.
All right.
So this week I am driving another Mercedes. This is the 2023 Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV. I had the EQS a while ago.
Yeah.
Now I have the EQE. So I got to say that just right off the bat, their naming conventions, I never know what the heck I'm driving. I literally have to look at like the Monroney or like, what are you driving? I'm like, wait, what does it say? EQE, sorry. I just
they all
wanted
look
to be
pretty much the same too, except
they
just
do.
Slightly bigger or smaller.
A little smaller, a little bigger. So the EQE is a little smaller, and it's 2 rows. 2 is all new this year, and it is an EV. It starts at $77,900 for the base trim. So it is most definitely a luxury vehicle. I had the top trim, the 500, which is $89,500 before you've added anything to it. Don't ask me what was added to it because I was trying to build it, and I fight with Mercedes website to build a vehicle. It can be a little tricky. And I didn't have a Monroney, so I was guessing. So mine's probably somewhere slightly north of that because I'm sure they have put on every package because it felt very, very fully loaded. You know, it had the wood dashboard that has the little metal like inlays of a little Mercedes star when you open. It's got the ambient lighting in 8,000 colors. It has aluminum door sills that say Mercedes-Benz, and it has, you know, aluminum on the tailgate right when you open that up, just right on the edge. So if you're like shoving stuff in there that could damage it, it's going to be a little bit easier on your car. Although it's not. That's one of its sort of drawbacks. There's not a huge amount of room. There's only 14 cubic feet behind the rear seats, which
that's not great.
It's not great. It's not bad, but it's not really great.
Well, I mean, you know, this is supposed to be like a mid-size 2-row, right? So
right.
The electric equivalent of the GLE.
Yes.
And you know, that one's got a decent amount of cargo space back there.
Yeah. So cargo space isn't a strong point. You fold it down. You know, if you're folding the seats down, it gets a good bit larger and you have more space, and it can tow up to 3,500 pounds. But this is really, I don't think this is a cargo person's car. This is really just someone who still wants the SUV experience, who wants an EV, who wants the Mercedes luxury, but cargo is sort of an afterthought. Or like you're throwing bags in there for you and your kid. Like your family stuff could fit in there for vacation. Yeah,
I'm going on vacation.
You're throwing luggage in there to go on your fancy vacation, then you're going to be good. And it is a beautiful interior. Like this has leather seats, and you know, it's got all the things that make it look like a Mercedes. You want a Mercedes to look fancy. Oh, and I looked today. There's 9 gazillion places to plug your stuff in, and I didn't even look in the back. To be honest, there's 2 USB ports, USB-Cs right on the front, like right under the like by the infotainment screen, like where the cup holders are. There's 2 in the center console, and there's 2 underneath where they have like this little storage area that has like a little elastic strap you can hold stuff in place, and it even has like a little edge to the sort of tunnel there that they've used for storage. So if you put something there, it's not going to come, like your wallet's not going to come flying out the first time you take a corner and end up under your foot and cause all sorts of issues. Not that that's ever happened to me in cars with storage down in that area. Never. So I was very happy that it had a little edge.
Glad to hear that's never happened.
Never.
That would be really annoying.
It would be really annoying if the storage area never functioned, because as soon as you even lightly made a turn, things went flying out and
things go flying everywhere.
Yeah, that's never good. So that never happens though. So I really appreciate the little storage thing. I thought that was good. I also really liked what I did. The cup holders. Okay, there's the spot where the cup holders go. The cup holders take up the spot, like let's say 2/3 of it, and then the other third of it, there's like a little space. But if you want to, you can take the cup holders out entirely. There's like a little clip, and you can pull the entire thing right out, which twofold. If for some reason you don't want the cup holders, gonzo, but also if you manage to spill your drink, you're not like sitting there with like Windex you can literally take this whole thing, bring it upstairs, run it under the sink, dry the sucker out, and then put it back in. So you don't end up with that, like, I don't know what that science experiment that some people have developing in the bottom of the cup holders in their car. That's a little bit of coffee, a little bit of milk, a little bit of like soda, some just condensation.
The detritus of daily life.
The detritus of daily life. You can get rid of that very easily in your Mercedes EQE, which I also liked. Wasn't a big fan of the abundance of piano black. I think I had that car for 30 seconds and it looked like a toddler had just, and it was just me.
I don't understand why they just keep doing that.
And it's
people
like
people must like it.
Because
I don't know, apparently not journalists. Everyone but journalists seem to like it.
I think
they bring people in and people are like, "Ooh, it's so shiny."
Ooh.
The designers
just equate shiny.
The designers who work in the studio and never actually touch the stuff. They just create it, and then it sits there under the nice, perfect lighting in the design dome, so that the executives can come in, walk around, look at it, and sign off on it and say, "Good, ship it." But nobody ever actually touches it. And by the time it gets out there into the field, that's when you start to see the fingerprints everywhere, and it's too late.
Gross.
It looks terrible, and it really, like, your hands can be about as clean as your hands can be. It doesn't matter. As soon as you touch that, it looks like you were like eating fried chicken and got in the car and just wiped your hands on the center console.
I think I'm talking to some designers at Pebble Beach this year, so I'm going to just if their cars, I'm like, so what's the deal with piano black?
Ask them why they do that, because it doesn't.
Do you like it?
Good.
Do the executives like it? Do people like it? No. It's because, a lot of these companies will actually make changes based on the feedback they've gotten.
Like a little bit. You want to put a little piano black trim somewhere, but like when you shut that giant cup holder, it is like a 1.5 foot by 1 foot rectangular expanse of piano black just waiting to be fingerprinted and have stuff on it. So I just was not a fan of that. Otherwise, it's a beautiful, comfortable interior. It feels and rides like a Mercedes. It's got plenty of power. It has 402 horsepower. So it goes, it's not a giant vehicle. So that's more than enough to make this feel responsive. And it's an EV. So the minute you touch the pedal, it's like, boom, it's off. And it has 269 miles of range, which is more than the lower trims. I forget exactly what the reduced number, but like you have to get up to this top one to get the 402 horsepower and the 269 miles. Otherwise, those numbers drop a little bit. But that's a good amount of range for every day. I don't think it's great, but it's not terrible. And it can do a 10 to 80%.
Every day, it's fine.
Every day, it's fine. And if you want to DC fast charge it, 10 to 80%, 32 minutes. That's not so bad, right?
Yeah, they're topping off at like 200, right? 200 kilowatts, because they're still using a 400 kilowatt system.
So it's
a lot better than the car I drove this week.
It's a lot better. Oh yeah, What did you have this? Oh yeah,
we'll get to that.
We're gonna get to it. Like, as
someone has some feels.
Someone has some feels about that one. The other thing that I thought was I love how it looks on the outside. Is nice styling. It's really eye catching. A lot of people were sort of giving it a second look, especially the lack of grille. It's just that giant expanse of sort of black with the little Mercedes. Again, the Mercedes star. It's like the same thing you have inside with the wood and the metallic inlay. It's similar, just not with the wood on the outside. So it's very eye catching. I like it. But what I didn't like, and on the sides, this isn't a huge SUV. Remember, this is a mid-size. Is that what we've kind of decided? Mid-size little bulbous thing. Not super high. It's not like there's a step up. It's not like you're getting into a Jeep or something, or like a Rivian truck or something that's higher off the ground. And they have a side step, a fixed side step that runs the entire length, like the full wheelbase pretty much. And it's got, it's silver, looks cool. It has a little black sort of like grippy thing. So it looks really neat. But it is so weirdly placed. Like when you get out of the car, you don't want that. Like if you just step on it, you're like lifting, like I don't need that to step down. I just want to step down, but it's there instead of the ground. You're like, how do I you do this awkward little half step onto it. And you're like, that was weird. Or you try and step over it. And if it just sticks out too far. So now you have a very large step over to step out of the car, which is awful if the car is wet and you don't want your pants to be messy and dirty and wet because it hits the back of your leg almost every time.
So that's me with every side step system in every car ever.
Okay. See, it's not every side step for normal height people.
All of them are just like, oh my God, this thing's a pain in my butt. I have to like step out further. It's
okay.
Weird.
So what you experience with every side step, the average human is going to experience with this. Oh. And in fact, it completely flummoxed my mom. So you would think that having a vehicle that you had a little side step would make it easier for a senior or someone who had some mobility issues to step up into the car. It was terrible. She couldn't quite get the right angle because it's like she didn't want to step all the way over because then it was too far out and she was sort of almost off balance. But she didn't want to step right on. And she's like, I don't want to step on this step. Then I'm like lifting myself out of the car and having to step down. Yeah. So that was a weird design thing that I found like annoying and awkward and like, can we take these off, please? So that I did not like the piano black and the little step, but driving it nice and smooth and quiet and super powerful. I had a great time driving in the side of crazy Boston traffic, trying to navigate things. It's great because there's like no hesitation. You're like, you're not cutting me off when you're like right in front of people. So I had a really fun time driving this. I liked it, but you're looking at, what do we say? $89,500 for this.
You were driving $100,000 car.
I was driving a $100,000 car. Exactly.
Least, yeah.
So it's a tiny. It's close enough. We're going to call it a $100,000 car probably once we put all the whatever's on there.
Yeah,
once you add the bits and pieces that they added.
Did it have a hyperscreen?
The long screen,
No, it did not. I had to think for a second. Sorry, no, it did not have the hyperscreen. It had just the rectangular screen with a huge expanse of the wood and little Mercedes star.
Oh yeah, the little tiny ones. Yeah,
little teeny tiny little star that you just think, oh, it's silver stuff, and then you're like, wait a minute. Oh, it's the Mercedes star. I get it. Yeah. Oh. So that was like most of the dashboard was that, which looked great. I'm glad that wasn't piano black. That was like a natural looking wood with a sort of muted silver or matte silver inlay. That was lovely. Unlike the piano black, which I want less of, even though it's just fingerprints city right there.
Everyone in the piano black.
I know. And you know what, to be fair, people comment, like I do see consumers comment when they look at things that I put up and they'll say like, oh man, that black is going to look awful. As soon as that's anyone, I'm like, yes, it is. Would you go give your feedback to the car company of your choice? Tell them you don't like the piano black.
We should have told them to never buying another vehicle with piano black in the interior.
Ever. Then we can't, I don't think we can buy a car. Is there any car that really is zero? It's probably a small number that doesn't have some little inkling of piano black in it. If not the giant expanse, at least a mini expanse, a little bit.
Did the Miata have piano black in it? I don't think it did. That's the answer.
And there you go. Which we already knew. The answer to the question is Miata. Yep.
I don't think the Ford Maverick has piano black.
No.
Oh no,
not.
I think you're right.
It doesn't have anything glossy in it.
No, there's nothing. There's nothing shiny at all.
It's all hard textured plastic.
It's all hard. Yeah, it's all about like we're rugged. We're just people of the earth truck.
Yeah, we're cheap and proud of it.
We're cheap and proud of it. You can keep your piano black on your $100,000 Mercedes, lady. We're cheap.
Or your $100,000 F-150, really.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that was the Mercedes-Benz EQE SUV, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This is a fun vehicle. If I had $100,000 to burn, I would consider burning it on this.
Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Robbie?
I'm just going to finish talking about the Miata because last week I talked about the Miata, but I didn't have a chance to do any performance driving. So, and then as soon as the podcast was over, I went and did that, and it was fantastic.
Surprise! I'm shocked.
That's my review. Fantastic. Except when I was trying to there's an abandoned road I can like drift on. I forgot to turn the traction control off. So it like sort of drift and they catch it and I'm like, what's that smell? Oh, it's the brakes. It's trying to keep me from dying. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm like, oh no, turn it back on. Other than that, no, fantastic.
Well, if you keep doing that long enough, then it'll just shut itself down because the traction control systems all have a temperature model for the brakes to keep you from totally cooking melting. It. So once the temperature estimate gets to a certain point, it'll just disable the traction control automatically.
Yeah. There's a really great video on Car and Driver Ezra driving I believe, the Bronco Raptor, I think it was, and he's driving through the sand, and the rear brakes are just melting. You can see it's just glowing. So that's a fun thing that you can think about. Anyway, back to the Miata that didn't have melting, but you could smell them. That's because it was like, oh God, what are you doing? What are you doing? I was like, what is going on? Yeah, no, I really liked it, but I got into my BRZ. They took the car away. I had to go somewhere. Like an hour later, I got into my BRZ. I'm like, whoa. Look at this. There's so much room in here. If the car
It's
felt
gigantic.
huge. It felt like there was so much room in it. And so so there, so that's the thing with Miata, is that especially if you're a big person like me, even if you do fit in it with the top up, it can be claustrophobic.
It's snug.
It's snug. You're wearing a Miata is what's going on. It's like you're putting on a pair of pants. Like you're just putting on the Miata. You're driving away. Yeah, that's the feeling. Is you're part of the car, because there's no room. There's no separation between you and the vehicle. There's no like extra, I could reach out the other side.
It is an extension of you.
Yes, like a leg or something.
An extra leg.
So yeah, no, Miata for 30,000. I mean, it's a even with all the performance driving that I did for the next few days, I was still at the end of the 300 miles that I drove it to 29.8 miles per gallon.
That's not,
and I'm
not too
driving
shabby.
not like an idiot, but I'm driving, quickly
Briskly.
on roads. Yeah, briskly. I'm driving briskly on these roads, and so yeah, no, it's hold on, I got thrusted on my cat. He's trying to. What are you doing?
Is your cat causing problems?
He's trying to tear up the carpet to get out of the room. So he's decided he wants into another room. Yeah. So yeah, the Miata, outstanding, $30,000. You can't beat it. Good value. Miles per smiles value is through the roof, because you're getting a fun vehicle. You're getting a convertible, which, if you've ever had a my life motto is that everyone should own a convertible at least once in their life. It could be when you're young.
What if you live in Alaska?
And even when you're old, there's days you can still drive a convertible. You can even if it's a Jeep and you take all the things off. Yeah.
Okay,
exactly.
Okay, that counts.
If you take all the things off, you're converting it to something that's something else.
You're converting it.
It doesn't. It's top down. Top down driving.
Converted.
It's been converted. I think there is value to your life that is added by having some sort of top down open air vehicle that you sit down and you're driving around. It's really nice in summer at night, and you're just driving. It's warm out, and you're just having a nice time. And yes, you can do it with the with seat heaters. I mean, it was like 50 degrees, and I was just driving around. I didn't even have the seat heater on. I'm like, I don't care.
I drive my Miata, anytime that it's over 40 degrees and there's no salt on the road. So 40 degrees, I just turn up the heater. Mine is old enough that it predates seat heaters. They hadn't invented those yet.
Just turn the heaters on.
Yeah, I just turn the heat on, and have the fan, the hot air blowing over me, and top down, sun shining. It's perfect. It's great.
Glasses on.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
When I had
life will feel good.
The smart, it doesn't matter. The smart car, the convertible one, the one with the little like targa top.
Mm-hmm.
When I had one of those in San Francisco in the winter, and it was like 40 degrees and it was drizzly, but every morning I would get up and I'd drive to work in that little car with the top off. It's kind of raining on me. Didn't care. It's really cold. Turn the heater on. Living. Yeah. Anyway, everyone should own one. I think the Miata is probably your best bet. It's a vehicle's not going to break down, but if you're crazy, you can get an older one. And yeah, that's it. That's really because I've already talked about it last week. So next week I'll talk about something else, I think.
So that was just the finishing last week's.
I was just finishing last week's because last week I hadn't had a chance to do any performance driving. I just sort of drove it around like a human, and I enjoyed it. And yeah, not good for bands. It's not.
No.
You can put the guitar
No.
in there, but you really can't get your amp in there.
So you did get a guitar. Okay, you got a guitar in there. I'm kind of impressed with that.
Well, I mean, as long as you're the only person in the car. I mean, if someone else is going, you're like, never mind. But
Forget it. It's just for two people. Yeah.
My guitar amp wouldn't fit into it. If I took like a practice amp to the show, sure. If you're a singer, it'll fit. If you're a bass player, no, because you have the big bass amp.
Your microphone will fit, no problem at all.
Yeah, your microphone, boop, right in the back. Every other person in the band now, you're just get something or rent something bigger.
Okay. Cool.
Okay.
All right. Well, I also had I would say mid-size crossover, electric crossover. It's actually pretty close to the similar size to the EQE. And it's about half the price of the EQE. I had the Toyota.
So you like it so much you get two?
No. I had the Toyota BZ4X limited all-wheel drive. So
and I have to ask the obvious question: does it still have its wheels?
It still has all four wheels on it. Yes, the wheels did not appear to be coming loose at all at any point during the 7 days I had it.
Still, just my favorite recall ever because it felt like what is this 1922? It's what? How do we miss? How do we mess this up? Of all the things to, but go ahead.
The wheels sometimes fall off. As they do.
So the BZ4X, is the first EV, production EV developed entirely within Toyota and their partner Subaru on this, because there's also the Subaru Solterra, which is the same vehicle with a slightly different front fascia, but it's
a better name
and a much better name. So the one I had was the all-wheel drive. It was the limited, which means it has 20-inch wheels instead of 18-inch wheels that you get on the base model, which means that you give up several miles of driving range because the wheels are bigger and heavier and have more in rotating inertia. And it still has the things that I complained about when I first drove it last winter, I think last November or something like that. Which is, that the way the instrument cluster is set up, it's the same setup that's in the new Prius, where you've got kind of this tunnel behind the steering wheel that leading up to this little instrument cluster, which looks like the cluster is supposed to be kind of above the steering wheel, and it's set up kind of close to where a heads-up display would be, so you kind of get some of the benefit of a heads-up display, but with it's not affected by polarized sunglasses, except it depends on where you position the steering wheel. If it's entirely possible that depending on where you like to have your steering wheel, the bottom half of the display will be cut off by the top part of the steering wheel.
Yes, that's me. That's what happens to me.
Yeah. So
I'm doing this up and down, to look like
rather annoying. Yeah.
It's a little bit annoying.
Actually, it's a lot annoying.
It makes you want to stab somebody in the eye. Yeah, it's annoying.
It's a reasonably roomy vehicle. Back seat, is got lots of space, lots of cargo space. We went to the lake last weekend with it, put the paddleboard in there, a couple of beach chairs, and a bunch of other stuff, and covered the back seat and had Daisy with us and my wife and one of her friends. Fit everybody in there comfortably, lots of space for everybody. It's actually, in terms of efficiency, the BZ4X actually isn't bad. It's much better than a lot of vehicles out there. If you're driving it without air conditioning on, it'll get about 3.4 miles per kilowatt hour. The downside is that the battery is relatively modest in size, which actually is not, from a purely rational perspective, is not a bad thing. In the front wheel drive version, you get 71.4 kilowatt hours, I think, or 71.8, and the all wheel drive is slightly larger. 71.4 and then 72.8 kilowatt hours with the all wheel drive version. The batteries are physically the same size, but their cells are sourced from two different companies. The front drive has Panasonic cells. The all wheel drive version has CATL cells from China. And so that means that with this vehicle, even though it has reasonably good fuel energy efficiency, the all-wheel drive with the bigger wheels only has a rated range of 222 miles. And it was hot when I got this thing. Like the temperature was like 90 degrees. And I had to go somewhere, and I unplugged it, and I turned on the air conditioning. And before I turned on the air conditioning, it was showing 192 miles of range. And as soon as I turned on the air conditioning, that dropped to like 145.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
What were those numbers again?
I immediately lost 20% of the range when I turned on the air conditioning.
Oh.
Yeah. Not good. Which is, it was more degradation in range from AC than I can ever remember on any EV that I've driven. It was very aggressive. And so that's a problem, especially considering
was the AC really good though? Like, where ooh, it's chilly.
Like this is worth that range.
I had it set at like 72. So it was comfortable.
But you weren't like freezing yourself out. Okay.
No, it's not like I cranked it down to 60.
There wasn't snow shooting out of the vents.
There was no snow or frost shooting out of the vents. It was just an average AC day.
Okay.
So, it's not, not great if you have to use the air conditioning, which is particularly bad because this does have a heat pump. It's not it's not just a mechanical air conditioning system, an electrically driven mechanical air conditioning system. It's a heat pump, which should be more efficient.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I thought it was just like, well, they just threw the cheapest, most inefficient air system on the planet in there.
Yeah. No, it should be a decent system, but anyway, dropped a lot of range there. And so that's something to be wary of. So yeah, it dropped the range dropped to about 150 miles from as soon as I turned on the AC, but it was too hot to drive without it. So I said, it was well within my what I needed, so that wasn't an issue for me. I was able to get to where I was going and get back to a charger where I could top it off a little bit to get home. The all-wheel drive is rated at 214 horsepower. The front drive gets 201 horsepower because they have with the front drive they use a bigger motor on the front axle. With the all-wheel drive they use two smaller motors. And then if you get the Lexus RZ, the RZ 450, they use the larger motor on the rear axle of the RZ, the larger motors. They use the larger motor from the front drive BZ on the front axle of the RZ, and then the smaller 107 horsepower motor on the rear axle. So you get like 308 horsepower or something like that. But this is the BZ4X. One thing I did discover that I really liked was that I didn't know about, and I don't remember them talking about it during the presentation when they did the reveal or the first drive, is on the underside of the dashboard, on both the driver and the passenger side, there is a radiant heating pad. So if it's cold out, you can turn that on, and it heats up, and there's radiant heat around your legs. Instead of blowing warm air over you.
Mm-hmm.
So you got the seat heaters and you got radiant heat. So you got the seat heater heating you up from behind, the radiant heat heating up your lap from in front, which should actually be pretty efficient. It didn't, when I turned that on, it didn't have nearly as much impact on the range as the air conditioning did. I think it only knocked down the range by a couple of miles. So
okay, that's no big deal.
Yeah. You got the same infotainment system that's on all the newer Toyotas, which is it's a good system. It works fine. The 214 horsepower that I mentioned doesn't seem like a lot, but because it's an EV, you got that instant torque. It's plenty. It's more than enough.
It's fine.
Yeah. It's so funny how little horsepower really matters in an EV. Because how fast do you want to accelerate? Like you just never run into a situation like, wow, this EV is just so pokey. If it only had 10 more horsepower.
Unless you're a rich guy that
Pokemon.
wants to show off your Lucid or your
Right.
Model S Plaid
and there's
or
something, but like even that, what is it? Let's Lucid have what's their fancy thing? And it's like you get 1,000 horsepower or something redonkulous.
The Sapphire is 1,200.
Yeah, but you're going to use that for roughly half a second before you have driven the entire length of the highway in your state, and now you can't use, like, boom, it's gone.
Yeah,
like you can't really.
Plus, you forced all the blood out of your skull.
Right, so now you've passed out. So
eyeballs are all like elongated.
You've warped time and space. Like it's not something you can. I know the horsepower is never practical in really powerful cars, but still, it's just so ridiculous. Even in everyday cars, it starts to matter less unless you're that rich guy looking to have. Guys, look what I bought.
Can I get to where I need to go? Can I hit highway speeds when I get up the freeway? Yeah, that's fine. All right, there you go. The end.
Yeah,
the end.
So this has got more than enough performance that anybody's going to need for their normal daily driving. The cargo area that I mentioned, 27.7 cubic feet, which is about double what you had in that EQE.
Mm-hmm.
That was
Take that EQE.
There is no frunk in the BZ, but you do get lots of rear cargo space, so that's good. And the ride quality was actually really good. I was really impressed with the ride quality, especially on the roads we have around here, which are a mix of really smooth roads that have just been paved, that are right in the middle in the process of being paved during construction season, and then really terrible roads that were paved a year ago and have completely fallen apart. So it was very comfortable to ride in. It was very quiet. I have very mixed feelings about this thing. There's some things that are if they
just tried a little harder.
Yeah,
if they just tried, because Toyota makes great cars, and I just feel like they were just like,
I think
fine, we'll do this.
It was like the night before. Like they're in school. It's the night before projects due, and they're like, "Oh, we got to make an electric car because my teacher's gonna yell at me. I hate that teacher. Oh, fine, fine." This is a straight A student who's just phoning it in.
Yeah.
It's still better than than it should be, because it's still you're still the straight A student, but it could have been better.
Yeah,
it could. Yeah,
you could have done more, but you didn't have to. You just did what you had to do to get by, because you graduate and you don't care.
Fine,
you're almost at graduation.
Fine. We're gonna make an FJ Cruiser, a tiny FJ Cruiser later. You'll love that, but this is whatever.
If this thing didn't cost $52,439, I would not complain about it so much. Yeah, because for $52,000, you can buy a Kia EV6 that is arguably much better looking, or an Ioniq 5 that has about 100 miles more range.
Just better.
It's more fun to drive. And it's better in a lot of ways. This is not a bad car. It just could be so much more.
Yeah,
which is unfortunate. And because
I see them around my neighborhood, people are buying them.
Oh,
okay. Good for them. They could have got something better for less money, or the same money and better.
Good for them. You made a mistake, but good for you.
Good for you. I see people buying bad cars. The Chevy. People bought Chevy Malibus for decades. So
I saw one of those. Do you know that was my first ever media loan was a Malibu?
Oh,
really?
I got a Malibu once, and I was so disappointed in it that I didn't even review it. I just talked about the teenage like it had the report card thing in it, and I was going to review it. And the entire time I had it, I do not like this car. This is not a good car. And it's not just and it's not that it's inherently a bad car. It's just that there's so many better cars in that segment. Literally every other car in that segment is better.
That is the problem. Yeah.
They don't make the Malibu anymore. So Chevy's like, yeah, you know what?
Actually, they're still building them.
They are. I thought they were killing it.
I thought it was done.
Not yet. It's still. I think. I think the end of the year. It goes out of production. Yeah.
They should put those resources to build in more bolts, because they probably sold more bolts than. Well, the Malibu's probably
a separate factory though.
Yeah, and the Malibu's. Whenever you go rent a car, you're probably going to get a Malibu. You're like, oh man,
Malibu or an Equinox.
Or an Equinox.
An Equinox. That's another big rental. Yeah.
Yeah, so no, the Malibu's still out there. And if you've been watching Justified City Primeval, You'll see a Malibu prominently in there as well.
Is the new Justified out? I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, it started about 3 weeks ago.
I didn't know this. Oh, this is the best news. Okay, sorry. Continue with cars. Yay, you should watch.
So, because I was driving it with the AC on most of the time because it was quite warm. I averaged 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. When I turned it off, it jumped up to 3.3, which is quite acceptable. It's as good as most other things in the segment, but it's just there's just too many things. Oh, and there's no rear wiper blade, rear window wiper. So wintertime, but to be fair, they're not the only ones. Hyundai and Kia aren't putting.
I heard that Hyundai was putting it on there in a refresh, or maybe it was a dream.
Could be. I don't know.
It was just a dream.
I understand why manufacturers aren't doing it, because it does create a fair bit of drag right there at that back edge where the air's got to come off the back edge of the bodywork. And they're trying to minimize the drag, but if you've got to drive it in the wintertime, the rear window defogger is just not enough. You've got to have the wiper blade there too.
Yeah.
So that's the BZ4X all-wheel drive limited. If you're gonna get a BZ4X, I would recommend that you just go with the front wheel drive instead, so you get that extra range. And you'll pay quite a bit less because it starts at 42, I think. Yeah, 42,000.
Yeah, that's that's a reasonable price.
Yeah.
More range. And really, why do you need an all-wheel drive?
And even the front wheel drive limited is 46,700. So, that's not as bad. So I would go with one of the front wheel drive models instead of the rear drive. Or the all-wheel drive, I mean.
Yeah.
So Toyota BZ4X.
It's an EV.
It's an EV. It's roomy. It's comfortable.
It's an EV. Keeps the wheels on.
I'm telling you,
and the wheels did not fall off once.
The wheels, if they could get that baby FJ Cruiser EV out the door quickly, they're just going to be printing cash.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, absolutely.
Because people love there's certain companies that people are like, oh, I'm just going to keep buying this automaker. But like Toyota's Toyota and Subaru and I think Mazda are like three companies where people are just bonkers. They don't even care. Like if you told them that the next Tacoma would catch on fire after 50 miles, they'd still buy it. They don't care.
It's gonna burst into flames. Don't care.
Yeah.
Thank you. Take my money.
All right. So Nicole, you went to New York the other day, didn't you?
I did go to New York the other day. I went to yesterday, as a matter of fact. I went to New York, and it was me and a bunch of businessmen all freaking out in the airplane because our plane was like 2 hours late taking off. They're like, I have important meetings. I'm like, well, I just have a car I want to go be revealed. It was the 2025 Escalade IQ, which is
Escalade IQ.
Escalade IQ. I know, and Sam was very blunt. I'm like, why do they call it IQ and everything else is like Celestique or Celestic or whatever? He's like, because Escalade has such a name. I'm like, yeah, but I still want to call it the Escaladic, and I can't help it. That's
Escaladic.
Escaladic. Escaladic. So it looks incredible. They showed it to us. It does look great. And you saw it too, right?
I saw it here in Detroit last week. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I don't even know what to say about the bazonkers lighting situation in the front. It greets you with lights. It says goodbye to you with lights. It's like, have a nice day with lights. Are you stressed? Do you need a massage? Like the front lights, they do all different patterns. Did they show that all off to you, Sam?
Mm-hmm, they did. Yeah, the Lyriq does something similar as well.
It's a lot of lights.
It's a lot of lights. And,
it's a lot of lights. Everyone
saw what Audi was doing like 10 years ago, and you're like, oh, what?
Yeah, so it's a lot of lights. And it looks great. They wouldn't let us touch it inside. Like they'd open the doors and
don't lean in,
don't touch it, don't breathe on it. You might accidentally have spittle come out of your mouth and touch the interior. As they said, it has a lot of places it needs to go, and they need to show people.
So they only have one.
We just need to preserve it, which really came off as we don't need you ruffians sitting down inside.
You don't want your filthy, sticky hands touching
Was the one they showed you silver or white? It looked white in some of the photos.
I thought it was kind of white. It was a very light color.
Okay, so maybe there's two then, because the one we had was very, very much silver.
Okay. Yeah, no, I feel like this one was white. If it was, no, this was very light. And it looked great. I mean, the screen. What did you think about the wall-to-wall carpet / the wall-to-wall screen that was in that?
Yeah,
and the extra screen.
It's 55 inches in total. It's the same screen that's in the Celestiq. But because the Escalade is wider, they added a couple of speakers at either end to fill in the gaps. But yeah, so you get 35 inches for the driver.
Part spin, man.
And then another 20 inches for the passenger. And that one's got polarizing on there so that when the vehicle's in motion, the driver won't be able to see what's playing on that part of the screen. So the passenger can watch a movie or something.
Whatever. And then there's another screen, like you think of that giant screen that runs across the dash. And then below that in the center console, I guess, almost, it's like sort of propped against. It's like where you might have storage.
It looks like they just propped it up. It doesn't look like it's hard there. It looks like they threw an iPad there. They're like,
it's exactly what it looks like.
In.
And there's even like sort of like empty space behind it. And I'm kind of like, what? Okay. Like, I'm like, is there just a little empty, nothing space behind it? But that part, like when they had it sort of they had the car, but you can't go inside of it. So we had like a little displays for different parts of the car. And one of them was a display of all this infotainment screen tech. And she was saying, no, it's not just one thing because it was showing all the HVAC. It just flips back to that because that's the thing.
But all the different controls are in there because there's almost no physical controls.
Right. And it flips back to the HVAC screen like after a few minutes, or I don't know what the timing is, a few seconds, whatever, because it assumes that's probably what you're going to want to adjust. It's too hot, it's too cold. You're going to want to mess around with that. But then you can do anything. And it was saying how it'll learn things. So like on your giant screen, if you pull into your driveway, it's going to know that you're in your driveway and be like, it showed little things so you can open your garage doors. Like assume you probably want to open your garage doors, bing. Or like if you've forgotten the dome light in your car, it's going to be like the little dome light button's going to pop up kind of like, hey, you might want to do this, bing, turn off your dome light, so it's going to sort of react to your environment to a certain degree. It looks really beautiful. Anyway. It's going to try. Yeah. We didn't drive it.
It's not that hard. I mean, it's just the car knows where it's at.
Right. So it should, we think.
We hope.
You say that as we have an OEM who had to let the wheels fall off of its car, Robbie. How well do we know if this is going to work?
The car knew what it was at. It just couldn't move after that.
It just couldn't move. I'm here. I have no wheels.
I'm stuck right here.
So a new word, tell roadside assistance to come and
right. You might want to call roadside assistance. Roadside assistance pops up.
Your wheels have fallen off.
AAA. Okay. But so I thought it was neat. The thing though, it starts at $130,000.
That's $30,000 less than the Escalade V.
I know, right? But still,
but why would you buy the Escalade?
Yeah.
It's
got a big honking supercsupercharged V8 engine in it.
It's crazy. It was crazy fun. That's just for kicks and you buy that. Just
you like trains? Fun. Here you go.
So and it has a 450 mile range, if I remember.
That's what they're saying. Yeah. So let me ask you this.
Yes.
Before they pulled the silk off, when you're sitting there looking at this behemoth on the stage,
drinking my latte. Yes.
Drinking your latte and looking at this thing. Did anything about it as it was sitting there with the silk on it strike you? Because this is an electric Escalade. Was there anything about it that particularly struck you?
Oh God, what was supposed to be straight now? I don't know.
So is it the floor was collapsing underneath it because of the weight?
Well, no. The turntable in our room when it moved when the guy was talking, you normally can't really hear it. It was like then I'm like, at first I was like, what is that? And then the guy's still talking. They say move again. Everyone's like, is that the turntable about to give up?
So we were sitting there. We were in the GM Live studio in Sterling Heights, where they, for the GM Live stuff, where if you can go to any of the GM brand sites and go to the live link, and you can get information about the vehicles they have, and they'll have somebody in the studio here in Sterling Heights with the car, and they will walk you around and answer your questions live, it's actually a pretty cool idea.
That's kind of cool.
And they have the EV Live as well to answer your EV questions.
Cool.
But so we were in the studio, and it's on the stage there, and I'm sitting next to Aaron Bragman from Cars.com, and we're looking at this thing, and with the black silk draped over it, we're looking at it. Why does that hood look so long? Is this like a cutaway with the front end of it like pulled away from the bulkhead so you can see inside? No, it's just a really, really long hood.
It's a lot.
Hey, everybody, it's summertime, and that means the weather's fine, and it's time to have your friends over to hang out in the backyard and share some good food and some good times. And you probably don't want to be going, running out to the grocery store and getting a whole bunch of stuff. So HelloFresh can help you out with some crowd-pleasing summer eats. From a backyard bratwurst bar to tangy key lime pie, HelloFresh Market makes summer entertaining a cinch. It's peak time for summer produce, and you don't always have time to get to the local farmer's market. But HelloFresh can help you out with that by making sure that you get the things you need to help adorn that meal with all your friends. The ingredients travel from the farm to your door in less than 7 days for quality that you can taste. And did you know that HelloFresh also offers more than just delicious dinners? It's now easier than ever to skip that extra grocery store run by adding snacks, sides, and more to your weekly order. Simply shop HelloFresh Market and take your pick from the curated selection of over 100 items. In our household, I don't usually do the cooking. It's usually my wife. But with HelloFresh, it's made it so much easier for me to pick up some of the slack too and do some of the cooking. Recently, I made some crispy kickin' cayenne chicken cutlets that we got from HelloFresh. The box came full with all of the ingredients we needed. It had fresh potatoes in there, carrots, some chicken, all the seasonings and everything, and a nice, easy to read, easy to follow instruction card. And in less than 30 minutes, I had the full meal done for both my wife and myself, and it was fantastic. So why don't you try out HelloFresh by going to hellofresh.com/wheelbearings50 and use the code wheelbearings50. That's wheelbearings50 for 50% off plus free shipping. So remember, go to hellofresh.com/wheelbearings50 and use the code wheelbearings50. That's the number 50 at the end for 50% off to get your first HelloFresh order with free shipping. Remember, HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit service.
A hood.
It looks big enough, that they could have put a big V12 engine in there. I mean,
It does.
It is a very long hood. And when you look at it kind of in isolation without somebody standing next to it for scale, it doesn't, because it's got, it's got 24-inch wheels, 35-inch tires, and the way it's, it's styled, it's got proportions that are very similar to the Lyriq, just bigger in every dimension. So by itself, it doesn't actually look as enormous as it is until you go up and you stand next to it and you realize how big this thing is.
Got planes landing on it.
So this is the standard wheelbase version. They are also going to do an Escalade IQL, which is going to be longer. Just like the internal combustion Escalades they have in 2 lengths. They've got the standard one and the ESV, which is a longer one. This IQ is it's over a foot longer than the standard Escalade and just 3 inches shorter than the ESV.
It is a big boy.
It's also 4 inches wider than the gas Escalade. And yet, despite all of this mass, and we'll get to mass in a second, despite all of this size,
the engineer's mind is blown by this entire concept.
There's actually 7 cubic feet less passenger space inside.
From an EV, by the way.
From an EV, which, this is GM, the company that has been proclaiming, we didn't take one of our gas vehicles and modify it and slap a battery and some motors into it. We started from the ground up and designed it as an EV and really optimized it in everything except the packaging.
So
I
mean, you look at something
so
like
big and inefficient.
Yes.
And especially when the Hummer's been out for 2 years now. I feel like I drove the Hummer 2 years ago.
And I talked to the chief engineer and I asked, so Hummer's been out there for a couple of years. This is, based on the same architecture. Were you able to do anything, learn anything over the last couple of years to help you reduce, take some mass out of this thing?
Anything at all?
Nope, not at all.
We didn't learn anything.
They wouldn't. Nobody would say what the curb weight was, but John Roth, who's the VP of Global Cadillac, did say, it weighs about the same as a Hummer. So that means it's somewhere around 9,200 pounds.
God,
it's so
is large.
It is very large.
Like, does it have a frunk?
It does have a frunk, but when they open the frunk and you look at it, you see how much vertical space there is, like from the bottom of the bumper to the base of the floor of the frunk. I mean, it's enormous. The frunk is actually quite shallow. It's long because you've got that big long hood.
It's a kiddie pool.
Yeah,
exactly.
Pool. Yes, and it's relatively narrow because all of these big Ultium EVs. One of the things they did was it's a unibody design, so there's no separate frame, but it does have the separate front substructure to hold the suspension. And one of the things they did was, compared to the internal combustion versions, they moved those rails inboard a little more, so the front wheels can turn more than they can on the gas vehicle, so you get a tighter turning radius.
That's good.
Yeah,
for the giant. You need
that also means that the frunk is narrower, so it's narrow and it's shallow. It's only 12 cubic feet, which is 2 cubic feet less than the Lightning. So and the back seat, the third row, has considerably less space than it does in the standard version. Most of that 7 cubic feet that you've lost in passenger volume is lost in the third row. So the first and second row are fine, but the third row.
I'm so confused by this whole how this came about.
Because you needed to have a flagship vehicle, and Escalade is the flagship vehicle of the lineup.
That's fine, but how do you make a larger vehicle that's an EV with less interior space? Like, how do you?
Because very careful engineering, Robbie.
It defies all sort of EV, gas to EV logic. We're like, because we don't have to run it. We don't have to, we don't have bell housing. We don't have to worry about that anymore. We don't have the drivetrain. We don't have all these other things that go underneath the car. So you have a nice flat space and you have a little bit extra room. And usually you're going to lose headroom because of aerodynamics. I always understand, but this pretty straight all the way to the back.
Well, one thing they did that was kind of opposite of what they did with the Silverado. On the Silverado EV, they moved the front bulkhead forward closer to the front axle. So the whole cab is moved forward about 4 inches relative to where it is.
There's a lot of space between the cab and the wheels here.
Yeah, it's like on the Silverado, it's 4 inches closer to the front than it is on the gas version. On this one, they went the opposite direction. They actually moved the cab rearward. Because if you look at the gas Escalade and the IQ in their profile, you can see that the space between the front edge of the door and the wheel arch is about twice as long in the IQ in the electric one as it is in the gas version.
I have so many questions. I want to be in the. I want to know.
Cool.
I want to see the minutes for all the meetings where all these decisions were made.
The minutes. Who did this?
Who did this? Who?
Yeah.
And
all right. Well, I mean, we got the EV9 coming out.
And then when you open the doors, because it's got that dual layer battery pack, that massive dual layer battery pack. Yeah, it like the Mercedes EQE, it has the fixed running boards built into the sides, so you can step up into it. But I mean, this thing only has, I think, 7 inches of ground clearance, and then there is a massive step up from that running board to get up to the floor of the vehicle. So
you can't hide it like you do in the Hummer. Because the Hummer's, it's tall. It's a big, tall Hummer. You're like, okay, it makes sense. I got to step up to get into this. Whereas this is you
still have to step up, even though
you still have to step up.
So high.
But it's a luxury vehicle.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but you can go 450 miles, I guess.
Yeah, it's coming next summer, and about 12 months from now, it should be out. Maybe, hopefully.
So they say.
And then at some point after that, there will be the IQL, the Escalade IQL, which will be even more.
Even more.
It's just crazy.
They could just make so many tiny cars and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like the Bolt, but they're just like, we're going all in. We're going mega big.
They could make 4 Bolt batteries for every Hummer and Silverado and Escalade battery.
Yeah.
All right.
And then everything that's in those cars is cheaper because you're not dealing with all the high-end stuff.
Yeah.
Not a lot of piano black in the
No
bolt.
piano black.
There was no piano black in the Escalade. That is
I was gonna say I don't remember seeing
who
piano
cares?
black
I don't
in the
care.
Escalade
I literally
either.
don't care about anything else now. That's all. I'm like, good job.
You're fine. You're like, whatever. Nothing matters now.
All the confusion I had is now gone because it didn't put piano black in. I don't care about anything else.
There you go.
all right. Let's see. BMW is making a new M5 Touring, which we almost certainly will not get here in North America because we don't buy station wagons.
We don't. We hate vans, or we hate wagons.
Yeah. Unless they're really ridiculously long and tall and everything, then we're fine with them.
Yeah. Escalade's just a really big station wagon. I'm gonna tell. Next time I see GM, I'm like, you know what? The Escalade IQ, that's the nicest station wagon I've seen in a long time.
Best station wagon ever.
They're gonna be so angry with me.
They will. They'll be cranky.
But the new M5 Touring has been running around the Nürburgring testing, and apparently it has the 4.4 liter twin turbo V8 and a big electric motor on the rear axle and it's a plug-in hybrid.
What is
12 kilowatt hour battery somewhere under there. So this could be a lot of fun. 790 horsepower.
That could be fun. Yeah.
Bonkers.
It's bonkersy. I like this idea. Yes, please.
I could go for one of these.
But we're not going to get it. So
no, we're not going to get it. So.
No, thank you. I guess.
We can't have nice
keep your
things.
stupid car. I don't want it. Meh.
We can't have nice things.
We can't have nice things.
We just need to go to Europe and just start see the press people don't want us to drive the European cars.
I know.
If it can be helped. Like they'll give us Euro spec versions of a car that's coming here, but if it's a European only car, they frown on us on giving us those vehicles because
they don't want us to know what we're missing.
Yeah, because you're writing about something that's
otherwise we'll be disappointed.
Yeah.
So this is such a wonderful car. Why can't we have it?
Because
they don't
we
want us
said
to
so.
We're just sitting on the plane on the way home crying.
Yeah.
They don't want that. They're looking out for our best interests.
They don't want to make us sad. They want to make us happy.
When I go home.
Okay. Well, speaking of happy, ChargePoint wants to make us happier.
Do they now?
We've all been complaining so bitterly about charging reliability.
Yes.
And speeds and everything. And do you guys know about ChargePoint's business model? It's a little different from EVgo and Electrify America and most of the other companies. So ChargePoint doesn't actually own the chargers that are out there that have their branding on them. What they do is they sell chargers to site hosts, to stores and parking garages and wherever else they put these things. And then they provide the back end services, to manage the charging and do the billing and everything.
It's like a franchise model.
Kind of, yeah. It's kind of
like you're like McDonald's.
Yeah, it's kind of like franchise charging. That's a good analogy.
Yeah.
And so they don't really have control over the chargers. So if a site host puts in a ChargePoint charger and then doesn't do any maintenance on it, doesn't keep it running, ChargePoint, there's not much they can do. But now they're going to try and do something, and so they've announced that they're going to make a big investment in building a new network operations center and putting new software in these things to try to monitor. There's 245,000 ChargePoint chargers out there. Vast majority of those are level 2 chargers, like usually 3.3 or 6.6 kilowatt chargers. So they're kind of like what you would have at home, not DC fast chargers. They have some.
They're in a lot of business parks where you go to plug it in. You go to plug in there, and then a security guard comes up. You can't be here, but there's a charge point. Yeah, it's private property. Okay.
Yeah, I mean near me here, at Washtenaw Community College, there's in the parking garage there's 6 ChargePoint chargers in there, and they're all over the place. And so there's almost 250,000 of these. So they're going to be doing a lot more monitoring of these, and one of the things they're going to be doing is starting a decommissioning service to incentivize landlords who are no longer interested in hosting the chargers to give them up for ChargePoint to repurpose.
It makes it sound like it's like a battleship. We are decommissioning you. You've done well to defend our country. Move
They're
on.
They're going to take it out to the ocean, blow it up, and make a artificial reef.
Yeah. Or they'll just take it back and install it somewhere else. So the goal is to when you go into the ChargePoint app, and the ChargePoint app is actually pretty decent at showing you where chargers are and showing them if they're available, if somebody's using them right now. But it doesn't necessarily tell you if they're not working. And so that's what ChargePoint wants to do, is improve that. So they want to make them more reliable to begin with, and then also have better information in the app to let drivers know, which ones are actually functioning, rather than just don't have anything plugged into them. And so hopefully we'll see that happening over the coming months, and see improved reliability. Now, if we can just get Electrify America to do their job.
Dun, dun, dun.
It's funny. I found that but at least here, these guys are better. ChargePoint is actually is a better experience, even though I guess they're not really owned by ChargePoint than the Electrify America, they are owned by Electrify America, right? They own all theirs.
Yeah.
It's the one where they have control that they haven't done as well for me than the ones where they don't have control.
Yeah. The only issue is, like I said, most of the ChargePoint chargers are level 2 chargers. So they're slower chargers. They do have, there are a couple of ChargePoint DC fast chargers near me here that they're like 125 kilowatts. But those are relatively more rare than the slower ones. All right. Speaking of charging, GM also made another announcement before they talked about the Escalade this week, about their plans for bidirectional charging. By 2026, all of GM's new Ultium EVs will have bidirectional charging capability.
So Yay!
And they recently announced that they were launching the Ultium Home product line, which is basically like what Ford offers with the their intelligent power backup system. So you can get a 19 kilowatt bidirectional charger, and then a transfer switch box and an inverter, and you can integrate it with their with solar and other stuff if you have that. And I talked on Monday with Haas Hassani, who's the VP of GM Energy, and one of the things we talked about was Ford. A lot of Ford customers, F-150 Lightning owners, have had difficulties with actually getting their thing installed and getting it working right, and it's been very expensive. And I asked him about that, what GM was going to be doing about that, and one of the things he talked about, GM's had a relationship with Qmerit for a couple of years now, to do home charging installations for Bolt customers, and for more recently for their other EV customers, and for the Ultium Home stuff, they're going to be working with a different company called SunPower that does solar stuff to do those installations and do the integration. But one of the things they've learned from the partnership with Qmerit is how important it is to really have a direct line from GM to their customers, and communicate and be transparent about what needs to be done, what are the costs going to be, let them know all this stuff up front before they do anything, so there's no surprises. And they don't want to get into the kind of situation that Ford has had with Sunrun, where people have been surprised by how much it costs and everything. And so they're going to be working closely with SunPower and with their customers, and also they're going to have something set up. We talked earlier about the GM Live stuff. They have the EV Live studio as one of the studios where they'll answer all kinds of EV questions. And so for customers buying these new GM EVs that have bidirectional capability, they will have, they'll be able to answer those questions. They'll be set up, in the studio with all the equipment, and they can talk a customer through, what needs to be done, how's the system work and all that, and, answer their questions, based on what they have in their home, and give them maybe give them an estimate of what the cost is going to be. It's not going to be perfect. They'll have to wait till an electrician comes out to really give them a proper estimate, but they can, give them some direction on, whether it's going to be worth it for them to do this kind of installation. And you're talking a minimum of several $1,000s to install this stuff. And depending on how old your house is and how it's wired up and where your electrical panel is. It could be many, many thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
So, so that's starting with the Blazers and the Silverados that are shipping now. They all have the bidirectional hardware built in on the vehicles, and all of their EVs will have that going forward. That's the Ultium Home stuff won't be available till the end of the year when the Silverado RST starts to ship, and at that point, when they start shipping the Ultium Home stuff, then they will ship an OTA software update to the vehicles that have been delivered up to that point to enable it. So if a customer wants to do that, they can get that OTA update to enable the bidirectional capability.
Have they still haven't talked about how much those?
No, but Haas did say it would be competitive. So the Ford Sunrun integration kit's about $4,000. And so it'll probably be in that same price range. So probably about $4,000 for the hardware, plus however many thousand
Plug it in,
installation.
Blah blah blah. But then you don't have to pay for expensive electricity.
Right.
That's true. And
well, it depends on where you live, because the utility monopolies. Some places you can't charge at night and then deploy during the. I don't know, man.
Charge during the day.
Rules. Yeah.
You charge at night because it's less expensive. So you charge off peak.
Oh yeah.
And then deploy during the day during on peak with your.
You actually would be able to do that.
Okay. Well, I think isn't there some places
you can manage it through the app.
Yeah, that's
so the owner can control when it switches over through the app, and of course it'll also be able to switch automatically if you have a power outage.
Yeah, that's the dream.
Yeah. All right. The 2024 Hyundai Santa Fe. Did either of you get to go to actually see it?
No.
I did not. Did you get to go see it, Sam?
No, I didn't. I was not one of the lucky few that was invited to that.
So we didn't get to see it.
But we got lots of pictures.
I can invite some other thing. I don't know.
So this is a little bit different from the current Santa Fe.
Everyone's building a Defender. That's what's going on, right?
Yeah. Everything's a little box. Like they're like Defender. That looks like a design. Everyone
looked at Land Rover and was like, you know what? We could do that.
Yeah.
They do all kind of look like a Defender.
Everyone loves the Defender. Why don't we just start doing that?
It's a little bit bigger than it's actually only about 1.5 inches longer than the current one. And similarly longer wheelbase. So it's actually on the same wheelbase as the Sorento, the current Sorento, which is like 110.5 inches or something like that. So it's slightly bigger than the current Santa Fe, but they put the third row seat back in there, which is really kind of a waste of time because it's not really very useful. But what do you think? What do you think of this new design direction?
I like it. I mean, I like the Defender, so I'm gonna. That's it.
You like the H headlights?
I do like the little H headlights.
I think the H headlights are fun. I like distinctive headlights, though. I think when any automaker has headlights,
I like the Rivian headlights with the little like ovals.
Yes,
whatever those are technically called.
I think they're all paying attention to lighting in a way they haven't in a long time, and I think lighting adds a lot. Like at night, you don't see anything in the car except the lights. It makes or breaks the car in the evening, and I think the little H headlights look kind of cool.
It's way easier if everyone has crazy headlights. Way easier to figure out which headlight behind you is a cop. So there's that.
That's true.
That wasn't my ulterior motive at all, Robbie.
But that's mine. Okay. So you got that going for you. The buzz. Everyone maintain.
One cool feature, I was watching the video that the TFL guys did on this, that Nathan from TFL did on the preview. They in the C pillar, so the pillar behind the rear door on the driver's side, there's a little panel there that you can push it in, and there's a grab handle there. So if you're loading stuff up on the roof, you can open the door, step up on that, grab the handle, and then reach up onto the roof to get stuff on the roof.
That's pretty cool.
Something to hold on to. Yeah.
Because I usually grab the roof rail, but I'm tall. It's
right.
For
most
regular
size.
Do that. For regular size people.
For normal people.
Grab a little handle and just
average sized humans.
Chuck it onto the roof.
The interior of this thing looks really nice. I guess it sounds like it's based on the same basic platform as what they have now. It's just been stretched slightly. And for now, at least, there's not going to be a plug-in hybrid for North America, because right now the current Santa Fe, you can get it as a gas hybrid or plug-in hybrid. For now, the plug-in hybrid is only for Europe. But I would guess that probably in a year or two they'll bring that back here as well. But we get just the 2.5 liter turbo or the 1.6 liter turbo hybrid, which is fine.
You know what it does have? Little knobs for heat and volume.
So you don't have to futz around with a goofy
just as it should
controls
be.
As God intended. That's the saying, as God intended.
Knobs.
Little things for you to actually grab onto things so that you can change things without having to touch them. I don't like the touch swipes.
Hyundai said that they're like, we're just going to go back to that. No one likes the other thing.
Even the touch audio in the Mercedes drives me nuts. I did it again where there's a little swipey touch thing on the steering wheel, and I turn the wheel,
teeny tiny little,
and I hit it with the edge of my thumb, and suddenly, gotta turn that down, but also trying to turn.
Suddenly you're listening to Anthrax.
Mm-hmm, yeah,
like, exactly. I don't like this.
What has happened? Yeah.
So next up, there was a Tesla involved in a crash with stationary emergency vehicles again recently. Shocker. Still happening. Let's see. This one took place in February 2021 with a 2019 Model X, and the Wall Street Journal got the footage that both the footage, the body cam footage from the police vehicles, and also the camera footage from the Tesla. Amazingly enough, they managed to get that. And there's a pretty good video that's embedded here in this Jalopnik story where they walk through the whole thing. But the driver of the Tesla was leaving from somewhere. He was impaired, got on the highway, engaged autopilot, and was going along for about 45 minutes. And in about a 34-minute period of this drive, he had been warned 150 times by the autopilot system to put his hands back on the wheel.
Wow.
That's a lot. I feel like at 100, I don't know, 145, maybe you just don't give him that option anymore.
Yeah, you just say, okay, clearly this guy's not listening. He's not paying attention. Let's just slow this thing down, bring it to a stop, turn on the hazard lights. Because
this is 2 years ago. Have they changed that at all since? The number of warnings? Do we know?
We don't know. I mean, they've changed stuff, ridiculous. But they don't talk about what they changed. So
we don't really know.
And actually, there was NHTSA forced Tesla to recall the full self-driving beta software earlier this year to fix some things that were violating rules of the road. And Tesla pushed out an update, but didn't really say what they changed in there. And so NHTSA has actually been pushing them to provide full documentation of everything that they changed. They still haven't got that. They're still waiting for that from Tesla, shockingly. But after 45 minutes on the road, this Tesla ran into stationary police vehicles, injured 5 police officers at this traffic stop. And also the driver of the other car that was being stopped by the police. And you can, if you watch the video, you can see, as the Tesla is going down the road, the flashing lights are pretty clearly there, right directly in front of it, and it never even slowed down. Didn't even slow down.
That's why you just use cameras, because you're blinding it.
Yeah.
Like the lights, it doesn't know what's going on. The camera, it's like if you're a human and you look at bright lights, guess what? You can't see anything. You can't make out anything.
Well, especially with the emergency vehicles with the flashing lights on there, you can see in the video that the image gets a lot foggier as it gets closer to those the flashing lights. It becomes less clear, and you can't see the edges of the vehicle in front of you. So it doesn't know that there's something there. And this is why you have to use other types of sensors like radar or LiDAR to give you that definitive, measurement that, yes, there is a solid object here in this position at this distance away, and I'm closing on it at this speed. You can't rely on cameras alone for this kind of stuff. So, if you have a Tesla, I'm warning you again, make sure you keep your hands on the wheel. This is not a self-driving vehicle, no matter what the branding says.
I was driving on the road and there's a guy in a Model S behind next to me. He was driving with this, just using his phone the whole time and not using the wheel. And I was just like,
cringe.
Oh my God. And the whole time, I'm like, is this guy drunk? What's going on? And then I look and I'm like, oh, no, he's just not driving.
Yeah.
Just not driving.
Just putting everyone's lives in danger.
Yikes.
All right. One last item. Yesterday, we're recording this early. This will be out this weekend. But yesterday, Cox Automotive put out their monthly report on average transaction prices. Anybody that's tried to buy a car in the last couple of years is well aware of the fact that transaction prices spiked over the last 2 years because of lack of availability, and automakers focusing on building their higher margin, more expensive vehicles instead of their affordable vehicles. And for the first time, the average transaction prices actually went down in July compared to July of last year.
Wow.
Yeah. Decreased by $337 to $48,334.
I can't fathom paying that much money for a car.
Not
how much?
That's almost
based on how much money my wife and I make and how much our bills and everything. I can't even wrap my head around the fact that I would pay $48,671.
That's the average.
That's the average. The average.
That's not
people are getting these crazy long, 15-year loans now.
Gosh.
But there has been more progress with EVs, though. EV transaction prices, which last August, I think, August or September of last year, average transaction prices for EVs were about $66,000. And now it's down to a little over $53,000, which is, it's $53,469. Down slightly from June.
Fancy EVs instead of regular people EVs.
Yeah. They peaked down 20% from the $66,000 last summer. And I was talking with Mike Austin, one of my colleagues, and we were trying to figure out what, how much of that was due to Tesla dropping their prices, and what was the change in transaction prices between Tesla and all the other brands. And Cox did provide us a table, or the table is in here. It'll be linked in the show notes of the average transaction prices for all the brands, but they don't break out EV versus non-EV for all the brands. Tesla is the only one that's EV only. So did a little bit of algebra. No.
Yeah. I hate algebra.
Yeah. It was
That's why we have Sam.
That's why we have Sam. Oh gosh, I got a little twitchy, but Sam did the algebra. No algebra for me. Go ahead,
Sam. If a car is traveling with a battery pack,
where's Sam? What's the answer? Where's Sam? Sam.
Let's see. Let me find it here. I did some math, and turns out that the average transaction prices on the Teslas were down 18% year over year. Yeah, here we go. Down 18% for Teslas. But they were actually up about 4.8% for everybody else for EVs. This is despite Ford having cut the prices on the Mach-E and the Lightning in the last couple of months. But I looked through the sales figures, for EVs over the last year, and EV sales have gone up pretty significantly over the last 12 months. And what I realized was, from looking through the numbers, there's been, on the non-Tesla vehicles, there's been a lot of new high-end vehicles that have had significantly higher sales this year than a year ago. So Rivian, for example, a lot more Rivians, and those are $80,000 to $100,000. A lot more Mercedes EVs, a bunch of Lucids, and assorted other vehicles, that are in the higher end of the range. So even though Tesla dropped their prices significantly, and that helped bring down the overall average, the average of everybody else's, at least right now, is up over last year. But I think if we look at this again in 6 months or so, we'll probably start to see that number come down as well, because they're going to be,
because all the bolts
plus all the hopefully Equinoxes and a bunch of other stuff that's going to be come to market. New Kona EVs and stuff like that.
I hope prices keep coming down. Although there's still so many supply issues. You wonder, I don't know. I just wonder if people are going to jump in on the EV.
I feel like some point the supply issues are like, oh, we have to keep the prices up. Like the stuff in the store, like where we all found out that like all the price hikes at the grocery store, like 95% of them were just like, yeah, we can just charge more. Is there a supply issue? Nah, we just figured out we could charge more.
We just can charge you this much.
You look at the profits for those companies. It's like, oh yeah, they're suddenly making a whole lot more profit.
Arizona iced tea guy, he's like, nah, man, we're still selling our stuff for 99 cents. You want Arizona iced tea? I got you. 99 cents.
99 cents. Here you go.
All right. So that's it for this week. We did have we got an audio comment from friend of the show, Adam Jakowenko, and I will play that now. Adam shares some experience that he had with his dad and his dad's new Lyriq.
Hey, Wheelbearings crew. This is Adam in San Diego. And I wanted to share an anecdotal story that I thought was an interesting indication of where we're at in some regards to electric vehicle charging and education. My parents own a Cadillac Lyriq. Yes, they are one of the few that actually got one. And they are enjoying it for the most part. They are quite confused by the infotainment system. Have some other random quirks. One of them is that the wheels, the aero covers on the wheels, are actually kind of cheap plastic, even though it is a Cadillac. And they have started to expand in the summer heat, and now they make a cracking sound as they rotate. So all four tires make a crackling sound as they turn, which is kind of driving them nuts. Understandably so. So they have to go see how they can get that resolved at the dealer. But anyway, I wanted to share that my dad wanted to charge for the first time at an EVgo station because they have EVgo free charging from Cadillac, and he has never DC fast charged a car before. So I told him to use the EVgo app or the PlugShare app and find the closest one, and you can go and charge. And so he calls me about 10 minutes later and says, where is the EVgo station? I navigated to the plaza it's supposed to be in, but I can't find it anywhere. And I said, I have no idea where it is. Somewhere in the plaza. I think that also is a challenge with infrastructure charging in America, is it's not always at a really obvious location. It's not like a gas station. And so sometimes they're actually hard to find. I've had the same experience myself. And he said, okay, I'm going to call EVgo. And I said, they're not going to know. But he's like, I'm going to call them anyway. So he calls EVgo, and he gets, of course, a lady at a call center who has no idea where the actual location in the plaza the chargers are. So he said he drove around for another 5 minutes, found a security guard who actually knew where they were, and they were sort of behind one of the big buildings and someplace he would never think to go. So he managed to find it. So I thought that was kind of a funny story, number one. And then he said he got there, and the first cable that he went to go to pull out was broken. And so he picked the cable right next to it, and he said, that cable, I pulled it out, and it wouldn't fit into my car. It's like a different shape. So he called me again, and he's like, I can't fit this thing in. So I had him send me a picture, and he's trying to plug the CHAdeMO cable into his car. He has no idea that there's a difference between CCS and CHAdeMO, so I had to explain that to him. And I said, you got to look for one that's the same shape as the insert on your car. I explained the difference between the two. And then he finally said, oh, there's only one more, but there's a truck that's using it. And so he had to wait for that truck to finish. And so finally he started to charge once he got his turn. And he called me back and he said, it's really hot outside. Can I leave the car, or will someone steal my juice? And I said, what? He said, well, he thought it was like a gas station where if he walked away, someone could unplug him and plug into their car and quote unquote steal his charging session, his electrons, so to speak. I said, no, you're fine. That's not how it works. He said, okay, so I can lock the car? Can I walk away? And I said, yes. And so he did that. He went and got a sandwich at a place, and he came back and he called me. He said, can I start the car while it's charging? And I said, yes. He said, can I run the air conditioning because it's hot? I said, yes. So then he's like, okay, I'm charging. 5 minutes later, he calls me back and he says, it's charging really slowly. And I said, well, what's the charging rate? So he tells me the charging rate. It's like 47 kilowatts. And he said, I said, well, what's your battery percentage? Like, what did you start at when you got there? And he said, oh, I don't know, like 70%. And I said, why are you going to a fast charging station if you're at 70%? And he's like, well, I don't want to get too low. He's like with the old school, like never let your gas tank go below half. So he said, I don't want to go too low. So I said, okay. So then I had to explain the concept of like higher state of charge is slower charging. You want to arrive with a lower battery state of charge. So I said, next time just go when you get down to like 20% or 10%. And he was like, oh, I don't want to cut it that close. And I was like, you can charge at home. And he was like, oh yeah, we keep forgetting we can do that. And so then we had to go through the whole charging conversation. And so the charge curve, the charge location, the different cables, the plugs, the not knowing he could walk away. It was just a comedy of errors. I had to share with somebody, and I figured you guys would appreciate it. So I know that this is a sample size of one for this particular situation, but he's just a normal, fairly tech savvy person. But he's in his 70s. He bought a Cadillac, and it's his first EV, and this is sort of the life that he's living right now. And I am on 24/7 EV support hotline. So thought I would share. Anyway, love the show. Bye.
Oh my God, bless your heart, you and your dad, that you're doing that. That is trying to be quiet through that and listen. Oh my goodness. It's such a perfect example of like the challenges we don't appreciate that what if you don't have a son, daughter, friend who's familiar with EVs? Like, do this.
GM EV Live.
There have been multiple times where I've been at a charging station and people will pull up and it's their very first time charging, and I will show them how it works.
Are they confused by it? Like, are you really like this is how it goes?
They're a little they're like, well, they're kind of looking around. They're like, do you know how this works? And I'm like, yeah. And so I explain it to them, and I show them you plug it in, and when you lock the car, it locks the charger. So you can't pull it out while it's locked. You have to unlock it. And yes, you can sit in the car, you can go somewhere, do whatever, but you have to make sure it starts charging before you leave. And they're like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, I got 2 years of free or whatever, because they just bought the car. This is their first time that they're going on a road trip, and I just happen to be there. But it's just like the dealers are clearly not like, there should just be like a little class. Like, you buy this, all right, come into this little room. We're going to show you how this works with a little dummy car and a little dummy charging station, and you plug it in.
And it should show you things like the CHAdeMO so that you know what you're looking at.
This is the one that's fixed with your car. CHAdeMO is only for like the Nissan Leaf and an Outlander that you will never see. Don't worry about it.
Never see. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, that is the. Like, it was funny listening to that story, not because it's like, oh, haha, he doesn't know how to use it, but you're like, gosh, we do perceive these.
Typical.
Right?
This is everyone.
Like,
no one knows
it's not your dad. Nobody knows how to use. Like, everybody at some point, I mean, once upon a time, we were like, I don't plug this thing in, but we've been doing this for a lot longer than everybody else, and it's become second nature for most of the world. Most people, they have no idea how all this works.
No,
and it really requires. It requires some, you wonder if there should, like you're talking about the call the person, the Cadillac person, whatever, and have it. It almost feels like there should be just like a quick and dirty hotline that you can just call real quick and be like, I'm trying to plug in my vehicle for the first time. I need help. And a Hyundai person is going to be like, let me route you to this person. What do you need to know? You're trying to plug a CHAdeMO into your car. You're trying to do this. Yes, you can walk away. Like just someone to walk them through it. Because what if there's no Robbie? What if Robbie isn't there?
What if I'm not there? I can't be everywhere.
Or
Adam.
Or an Adam. Or you don't
get Adam on the phone.
Adam. Adam's not available.
There.
He's busy helping his own dad. He cannot help your dad. Robbie is at another charging station. Sam and Nicole don't care because we're not in California. Good luck, people.
Sam and Nicole don't care. That's the.
We care.
We care. No, I do. And it's just so indicative of what you see with everything except for the crunchy wheels. That's absolutely
horrible.
I haven't heard before, but
that is absolutely horrible.
We had a Fiat 500, like the super cheap Fiat. We got it on lease because the WRX engine had exploded and we were broke. And the wheels would squeak like there's no tomorrow. And I was like, wow, do we already run through the brakes? So I went out and bought brakes. I, pulled the wheel, put jacket up, put in a jack stand, take the wheel off, look inside. Tons of pad. Pad's fine. I'm like, what is going on? Turns out it was the wheel covers. They were squeaking because of, heat, and then they get cold.
Yeah.
And then now when the car's rotating, the wheel covers would squeak. So it feels, but that's a Fiat 500, which costs like, I don't know, 30 cents a month to lease. It's not a Cadillac Lyriq.
Yeah, the Lyriq was a skosh more expensive.
Yeah.
But this is like I said, this is exactly why GM's set up the EV Live site, so you can go in. I'll put the link in the notes, in the show notes. But you can go in there. You can do a one-way video experience where you take a video tour with an EV specialist. They can't see you, but you can see them. There's also real-time EV answers where you can ask the specialist there about charging, maintenance, and how the GM stuff works. And then there's just more general information about electric vehicles for all. So this is if you're thinking about buying an EV for the first time, you might want to go check this out. Even if you're not necessarily considering a GM EV, a lot of the stuff here, just the real-time EV answers is going to be, generic enough that, it'll apply to any EV. So it's a good place, or you can just send us your questions and we will attempt to answer them here.
We will call your dad and
we'll call your dad. Yeah.
We'll walk him through it.
We'll put our numbers on the website. Your parents can call us at 5 p.m. when they're trying to charge their cars, and whatever.
Yeah. So that's it for this week. Thank you all for listening, and please, send in your questions to feedback@wheelbearings.media. Either write them out, type them out, or if you want to write them by hand and take a picture of it, send us the picture. Or hopefully your handwriting is legible.
Raven.
You can send it by Raven.
Carrier pigeon.
Carrier pigeon work too. Or record your questions and comments and send them in, and just like Adam did, and we will stick them in the show here. You can be part of the show. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.